As somebody who is terrified by the idea of mimics, this movie got me. Let's do it. Maddie's Head is about this woman named Laura and her stepson Isaac. Laura's husband and Isaac's father got into a terrible car accident that disfigured him, and they end up pulling the plug and he dies. Isaac's mother had died a few years prior and he has no next of kin, so his social worker informs Laura that if she doesn't take him, he's going to go into foster care. So Laura decides that she's going to give it a shot. Their relationship was already very strained before James passed away, and now it's even more so they're both trying to navigate that. Well, they're obviously in the grieving process too. So Laura is watching these home videos of James one night and she falls asleep, and she wakes up to these flashing blue lights coming from the woods, and she sees a person's silhouette outside the window. Well, Laura kind of moves on from this, and again, she's still trying to navigate this relationship with Isaac, so she calls in James's best friend Robert to come help out. The next night, Laura is once again woken up by these blue flashing lights, and this time she follows them. And she follows them to the woods and sees this vision of a crashed car as well as James's disfigured face. So they end up having James's funeral. Laura and Isaac are obviously distraught. That night, Laura's dog starts barking loudly at something in the kitchen. And when Laura and Isaac investigate, they see this creepy-ass creature running around the house, and eventually it escapes through a window. They're obviously both fucking terrified by this, so Isaac actually sleeps in Laura's room with her that night. We cut to the woods surrounding the house, and we see that there is this structure that has been built by branches. In the darkness of this structure, we can hear this creature growling, and it begins to repeat Isaac's name over and over until it sounds like Isaac's father. One night, Isaac is awoken by the sound of his name being whispered in his father's voice. He sees that this creature now has his father's face. Next day, Isaac goes out to the woods where he finds this wooden structure, and inside of it, he sees that creature again, and now he's absolutely convinced that this is actually his father. Isaac tells Laura that he's been seeing his father. Of course, she doesn't believe him. So Isaac takes Laura to the woods to show her this structure, and he insists that his father built it for him. James now tries to go inside the structure, and Laura tries to physically pull him back. As she's doing this, Isaac straight up punches her in the face. So that night, Laura calls Robert over because she's like, he's seeing visions of his father, and now he's getting violent. He punched me in the face. Laura decides to put a hidden camera in Isaac's room. At night, while Robert's there, Laura's dog, who has been acting weird since first seeing the creature, runs out of the house. I assume that she's gonna come back, but when she doesn't, Robert goes outside the next day and finds her dead. I'm sorry. Now, this poor dog was mutilated, and they bring her body to the vet, and they inform her that this could not have been done by any other creature. The wounds actually look like knife wounds. So Laura starts to suspect that Isaac did this, and not long after, she finds James's grave vandalized. Another night, Isaac hears something from the vent in his room, and when he looks, he sees Bella, Laura's dog. The dog then backs up and comes forward again, and this time it's his father. What he thinks is his father. So Isaac begins to speak to this thing, and it tells him to come back to the structure in the woods. Before he can say anything to this creature, Laura, who was watching on the hidden camera, saw Isaac talking to something and comes in the room, so the creature leaves. Laura at this point kind of has a mental breakdown, and Robert is going to comfort her, and I guess she gets caught up in the moment and she kisses him. And Isaac sees this and becomes absolutely enraged. He runs out to the structure and he hears a voice coming from it telling him to bring Robert there. The next day, Isaac asks Robert to go out to the structure with him, and he does. The creature emerges and attacks Robert. Robert ends up surviving, but he gets severely injured and ends up in the hospital and is completely unresponsive. Doctors end up telling Laura that Robert's injuries look like he got spooked and started running and fell. When she asks Isaac about this, he claims that they were just playing in the woods, and while he was running, Robert fell. Laura continues to push, and eventually she gets Isaac to admit that he's the one that vandalized his father's grave. However, he denies killing Bella the dog or hurting Robert. At this point, Laura informs Isaac that she's spoken to his social worker and she's actually going to be leaving the next day because she does not think that she is equipped to handle this and be a mother. She spends one final night in the house and she goes to check on Isaac, and she finds this creature laying on top of him while he sleeps. She obviously starts screaming, and this creature lunges towards her and slams the door in her face, which knocks her out. Now, Isaac wakes up and sees this, and I think it's at this moment that he realizes this thing is not his father. Eventually, Laura comes to, and she goes to the kitchen and grabs a knife and comes back and just starts stabbing the creature. Eventually, it manages to fight her off, and it escapes through a window again. We then cut to years later, and we see that Isaac is now somewhat grown up, and he returns to his childhood home and returns to that structure in the woods that is still there. He finds that it's kind of collapsed and it doesn't seem like there's anything living in it anymore. So this time he decides to enter the structure, and he finds a photo of him as a child with his father. We understand that this photo must be what this creature used to mimic James. He also finds this skeleton, and when he examines it, it appears that the skeleton has no face. It seems like when Laura stabbed this thing, it escaped, but it went into the structure and died. Isaac then goes back into the house, where he goes into a bedroom and calls out for his mom, and we see Laura sit up in bed. She ended up raising him, and we have a happy ending, despite this terrifying fucking thing.